Hi, this is Neil Sutton. I'm coming at you from my home in Brooklyn at the apartment I rent. I'm coming back and putting another YouTube video out and Facebook video out regarding the ongoing misconduct by Anne Arundel County, Maryland. As most of you know, the civil case, the county attorney argued in the courtroom terracotta and also statute of limitations and what was the other thing? That you can't sue a municipality in the state of Maryland. He, however, did suggest to the judge that if I want to sue somebody, sue the police officers. At this point, because of the nature of the situation, the damages caused, because it has been tied up in the courts for as many years as it has, I'm requesting that Anne Arundel County hold these officers criminally liable for their misconduct under 18 U.S.C. 242, which is for depriving me of my civil rights, and number two, I believe it's Title 42, Section 14141, which is discriminatory harassment in regards to police continually contacting my job for over 2 years and harassing me at my job, forcing me to have to re-go through psych exams every time they called the fire department and ordered it again. So I've been through that multiple times in regards and cleared on all of that. As you well know, I'm full-duty active firefighter. They don't let crazy people go ride fire trucks and make medical assessments on patients and do what we do with the fire department. But nevertheless, the first one I brought up, the 18 U.S.C., has a statute of 7 years limitation unless there's fire or threats of murder or attempted murder involved in it, which just classifies under that, not by the police department, but by Susan Billings. On February 27th, 2020, the judge signed the order holding Susan Billings, a.k.a. Susan Sutton, a.k.a. Susan Smith, a.k.a. Mary Sutton, responsible for the damages caused to me. So she's financially responsible for that. She failed to show up for federal court 4 times. That's the reason why it became a default judgment. There is an evidentiary hearing coming up. It's been delayed, or my attorney's filing for a motion for delay because I've been put off on COVID quarantine. Just to clear that up. In the meantime, I've been in touch with the county executive, internal affairs, FBI, my internal affairs, besides Anne Arundel County Police internal affairs, and other people in regards to this. My internal affairs submitted the documentation, after reviewing it, submitted it up to the D.C. Office of Inspector General. Anne Arundel County Police has taken a different tone to it. They've refused to take internal affairs complaint. The county executive, as I was told by Jim Kitchen, will not meet with me and stated they have turned everything over to Office of Law for Anne Arundel County. Anne Arundel County Office of Law investigates civil matters, not criminal matters. Also, one of the officers involved that I request to be criminally charged is a lieutenant, a commander at the Internal Affairs. So what does that tell you? It's a good old boy network. Again, the county executive won't meet with me. This sends a clear example out that County Executive Stuart Pittman approves of the criminal misconduct by their police officers in Anne Arundel County. The taxpayers are paying taxes to these police officers that willfully and deliberately violated my civil rights and continually harassed me. This is what the Anne Arundel County taxpayers are paying for out of people that took oaths to uphold the law, not break them. It's been a constant runaround, and I'm getting ready to get into what they exactly did. Sergeant Michael Cox, now Lieutenant Michael Cox at Internal Affairs, contacted Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS Clinic, telling them that I needed an emergency psych eval after I was cleared by the Anne Arundel County Crisis Team, Kim Vaughn. He continued to make these phone calls throughout the day because he was upset I exercised my Second Amendment rights to defend myself. The state's attorney's office told him there was nothing to charge me with, and also told him not to pursue the matter any further. However, he decided 2 hours after I was cleared by the Anne Arundel County Crisis Team to continue to contact Dr. Filson and Battalion Fire Chief Michael Dowling at the clinic. They refused to declare me nuts or for an emergency psych eval via telephone and without meeting with me. By the time he called back and told them that the state's attorney's office told him not to pursue the matter, the assistant fire chief had already ordered for a fitness for duty. These fitness for duties consist of several hundred question psych exams, being interviewed by the fire department psychiatrist a total of 5 times, I believe it is. I was also ordered to go to my private doctor that cleared me, and ordered to go see Dr. Hicks, head of psychiatry at Georgetown University Hospital, who also cleared me. The police wouldn't accept the findings of their own psychiatrist, my fire department psychiatrist, the head of psychiatry at Georgetown University at the time, and Dr. Peter Sue, my private physician that I was ordered to go to. So they continued to call my job, constantly making accusations for 2 years. Every time they called, another fitness for duty was ordered. The last event was former police chief Kevin Davis contacting acting assistant fire chief Eugene Jones, telling him I had guns, was homicidal, suicidal, and threatening to kill people, which of course was totally false. It got so bad with them calling there, Dr. Mary Connell, the Washington, D.C. Police and Fire Clinic, based upon what she told me, she told the acting assistant fire chief to tell the Anne Arundel County Police to stop calling and harassing me, that they've given me every test that's known to give to me multiple times, and that there was nothing wrong with me. But the police decided to continue to do this. This is what led to a lawsuit, because they wouldn't take any corrective action or apologize for the damages that they had caused. Now it's reached a point with the civil side of it being over that the criminal element be enforced, as well as the administrative element, which, again, per Jim Kitchen, the county executive can't do anything with the police department, that they have to listen to their attorneys, and that the county executive will not have a meeting with me. So what does this tell you about the Anne Arundel County government? It's not just the police officers out here committing criminal acts. It's also the county executive supporting it through Jim Kitchen and his office, who's been the main person I've been speaking to. But this is what goes on. There were other incidents. They falsified reports on me, claiming I trespassed on the property. They had notarized letters after they filed those charges and before it went to court, verifying Susan was contacting me and inviting me to the house. And there was even a police report done 2 weeks before those charges, 3 weeks before those charges were filed. So, and it was verified. Even Lieutenant Peterson from Anne Arundel County Police called her and told her, look, don't call this man's employment. Captain Grover from Washington, D.C. Fire Department wanted me to have a police report done to document. I documented at Anne Arundel County Police Department the following morning, since the phone calls were coming from Anne Arundel County. They had the phone records. They had the special report that I had to type that was endorsed by then Sergeant Felder. This that verifies that the other firefighters knew of the problem with her calling there and so forth. What wasn't known, and it was explained in the police report that Susan and I had been meeting. having marital affairs. They knew this because on October 30th, 2 months earlier, I reported the truck stolen from the house. She had no idea where it was. She invited me to the house. I was up there to help her during the hurricane with the pellet furnace if the power went out, and getting the generators. We had 2 generators to get them started. We did lead into the bedroom. After we left out of the bedroom and did our marital thing, she started going off in different personalities. But yet I was told I had to leave my own property by the police department. And not only that, one of the police officers followed me back to the PG County line where I was heading. This was nothing but pure harassment. We were married, no protective order, and they verified it in the police report that there was no protective order. They knew that she was mentally ill because it was documented by Sergeant then, Lieutenant now, Michael Cox, and Corporal Heineke. Sergeant Novelty were on the scene. Officer Beaushort was also there the night I reported the truck stolen, and knew her mental health records because they were given to him, a copy given to him, when the crisis team told me to call the police department to get her in. And they wouldn't take her in that night. That's where the whole protective order came in, that she requested to be dismissed, which was dismissed. So during that time, me being a Christian, this being my wife, and me taking marital vows, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, I did everything to help my wife, but maintain my distance until the private investigator determined who was doing this. Well, after I was charged, and the morning I got called to Internal Affairs because I was falsely charged for harassing her and trespassing. Now, the times that she's claiming harassment, I was in a meeting for one of the incidents that she claimed with the private investigator, going over his investigation regarding who broke the windows at the house, who set the fires, and so forth. Other times I was at work. It can be verified. I was at work for other dates she listed. Then she claimed I followed her into Walmart and harassed her in Walmart. She was the one who followed me the day I was up looking for an apartment, which I wound up moving to up in Anne Arundel County near the church. I was living on the beach for a while. Then I lived in a firehouse for about a month or 2. Then I went back down to North Beach and rented a room on Boston Avenue. So, with all this going on, and the crimes were still continuing, my Kia got attacked at midnight while I was sitting in it. I was in a dark spot talking to the Coke team, EAP, from my work about the situations transpiring with Susan, calling me, inviting me to the home. That was heard by Miss Sandra Palmer, a neighbor who lived over at 7006 Boston Avenue at the time, because I was always talking with my speakerphone on. The same thing was heard by other people. So, this was an ongoing issue. And then there were the attacks on me. Of course, there were death threats coming in when I lived on Richfield Drive in Severn, and there were other incidents going on at work with death threats coming in there that I wasn't made aware of for 2 years. For one of the incidents that the fire department, it was sent up and ignored. The constant hacks on my credit cards and everything else. Well, when I was charged by the police department, I had to go to my internal affairs. I got the copy of the police report that morning and took to them, and it clearly states on page 3 that both the police department and the fire investigator concurred that she was responsible for the acts of destruction. Anything was unlikely at best. So what happened from that January date until the May court date, I went and got the notarized letters from the people that heard her invite me to the house and the people she had talked to on the phone. I pulled up my cell phone and took pictures of my cell phone. I took the police report, that stated there was no protective order or anything like that. That was done in October, 2 months before she had me charged. And I submitted it to the police department. Per Detective Overbay, the charging officer stated she contacted Joe Cooch in the state's attorney's office, and then after that I was told by her that it was never submitted over to the state's attorney's office. It was in the evidence room at the Telegraph Road Police Station, Western District Police Station for Anne Arundel County. The charges proceeded. A step was done. I again submitted the documentation directly to Judge Shyam Spencer's chambers. The letter I included with it, Judge Shyam Spencer wrote in red ink, and I have a copy of that letter, to the state's attorney to take whatever action deemed appropriate based upon the evidence that was produced. They did not take any action. The threats continued to go on. The fires continued to go on. The swastikas on my door here in Baltimore. Her chasing me from the church. Her bringing 2 pickup truck loads of destroyed property of mine to the church while I was at a funeral in South Carolina. Pastor Clark Clark was in Baltimore at a regional conference, had left Baltimore to go back to the church to help her unload the truck, her pickup truck, for 2 loads, and put it on the stage in Manning Hall in the church in the basement. And then she came back in there, and from what I understand from Pastor Carr, she was telling him to put me out or she'd never come back to the church. And then accused him and the church of siding with me and refused to come back to the church. She hadn't gone to the church since December 2011. On Christmas Eve was the last time she went to church with me. Granted, she came in there for a ham and oyster roast, a fundraiser we were doing for the church, and from what I understand from another church member, she had showed up at the nursing home with the choir out of the blues for a sing one night and then disappeared again. But there were continual incidents where she was following me. I got calls from neighbors while I was at the church setting up the train layout that I do every year at the church, and this year may be different because of the pandemic. But I generally, once I get the tree up, I put a train set up. While I'm up there putting the train set up, in my phones, I'm getting phone calls from my neighbors here in Baltimore that she's up here pacing the house. Now, this was shortly before my windows were bashed out, and after she received a letter from my attorney telling her she should be well on her way of selling the home to give me my share of the property. Every time she got a letter from my attorney, things flared up with her violently. So this is what's been going on. The police department still refused to take reports. For a lot of this, Baltimore City would shift me to Anne Arundel. Anne Arundel would shift me back. She also called the firehouse, making threats towards me because of my Facebook account. Captain Michael Szymanski of Washington, D.C. Fire Department typed a special report to the fire chief about this, requesting I be transferred to another firehouse for my own safety and the safety of others. That wasn't done. I remained at 14 Engine. I notified Internal Affairs. They told me to take that special report with me to the court commissioner's office, which I did. The problem we had why she got out of a protective order was because Captain Michael Szymanski from Washington, D.C. Fire Department did not show up for the final hearing. And the judge cited that. It was also cited in the courtroom about Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS denying me FMLA to get her the help that she needed, that they knew she was psych decomposed and bipolar 1, according to the report given by Sergeant Michael Cox to Dr. Filson of the Washington, D.C. Police and Fire Clinic and Chief Michael Dowling, the MSO, or Medical Services Officer of the Washington, D.C. Police and Fire Clinic, who happens to be a firefighter with the District of Columbia. So the department knew her mental health situation, and it was documented during our first separation. They did nothing. She had also destroyed and hid $1.2 million worth of my collectibles in storage, and she destroyed fire department equipment from three different jurisdictions, from Prince George's County that was assigned to me, from Anne Arundel County that was assigned to me, and from Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS that was assigned to me. So, nothing was ever done. Nothing done about the missing fire department badges. Nothing done about my missing customs badge from when I worked at the U.S. Customs Service. They gave me my Explorer shield sealed in lucite. That is still missing. Along with the White House Rescue Operations Manual for Marine One, the President's helicopter. I took a class in 2000 at College Park, University of Maryland, where they flew Marine One in, and we were internationally certified on aircraft rescue firefighting that week. It was either 99 or 2000 I took that class. But, I was assigned to the Foam Unit Task Force for 15 years. Some of that documentation, I had 2 of those booklets. One was turned over to one of my lieutenants that later became a captain for drilling purposes at the firehouse. I kept one hidden in the attic behind the wall in a locked attic. So at night, because of my shift work, I'm up all hours during the night because I sleep my first day off. I had time to go and review that. That had the seating arrangements for the president, the crew chief, and all other dignitaries that fly on board Marine One. It also has the cockpit, a picture of the cockpit that we needed to know how to shut the power down to the aircraft and to hit the third fire extinguisher on a VH-131, which is the president's helicopter. If this stuff gets out in the wrong hands, the vulnerability of that helicopter, of the president's helicopter, can be breached. And, it's a security matter. And then there's the issue of the threat I received at the White House of boom, you blanking die, and I'm not going to repeat the word, starts with an F, ends with a K. Actually, an ING, but a KING. So, this is what I was dealing with. I went to when we got back to the firehouse, I contacted Chief Milton Douglas from Internal Affairs. He deemed it a personal matter, even after I cited the order book out to him, stating that we're required to have a working phone at all times, and that my cell phone is my working phone. So, but he blew it off as a personal matter. And this is what part of the problem is. And right up into this year, everything was deemed a personal matter by Internal Affairs until after the February court hearing and after I submitted the documents over showing what was submitted with special reports endorsed by my lieutenant at Engine 13 for the FMLA, and it being denied along with what the police told the fire department clinic. Now they're not taking it as a personal matter. They submitted it over to the Office of Inspector General as I'm requesting the fire chief be criminally charged for suspending me, claiming on those suspending documents that it was a private property of Susan Sutton at 1255 Johnson Grove Lane. And this is what's typed in that suspending document. And this was done in 2015, August of 2015 as a matter of fact, after a judge determined in the Anne Arundel County courts on March 31st, 2014, over a year earlier, that I had ownership in that home, when she ordered Susan and denied their motion to stop it to allow me to have an appraisal done at that home. That was the deciding factor showing I had ownership in that home. So this also goes to prove that those charges were false that Detective Overbay had filed on me, on top of the evidence that was turned over to the police department prior to trial. So, this is where we're at. I haven't been found guilty of trespassing or harassment. I haven't been found guilty of anything. But the other thing that's come out is DC Fire and EMS is claiming I was arrested. That came in an email from Sandra Little at Office of Compliance to Captain Michael Shemansky, who typed it in an endorsement on a special report, which is truly false. And I even asked Pat Washington, Office of Compliance, produce a mugshot, produce a fingerprints, produce the arresting record. Well, I can't. That's because there is none. But this is what I've been dealing with. And then the other thing was the Secret Service report that was hidden that nobody could find. The only person that ever saw it was Fire Chief Kenneth Ellerby. Nobody else saw it, and this was verified by several assistant fire chiefs. This was verified by Dr. Mary Canal at the clinic, that nobody knows where that Secret Service report is. Well, it was buried in the documentation that was up at Office of Compliance at Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS. I got it because I did a FOIA request, and I talked to Miss Pat Washington and explained to her, look, you signed for the documents I brought up to the fire chief's office. Who do you think they're going to use for a scapegoat? You signed on some of those Form 1s, the accountability forms for accountable property. And guess what? All the police reports, all the medical clearances that nobody said ever happened in the courtroom were all sitting up in Office of Compliance. So, this is how far this cover-up is going. Also, in 2016, I had sent copies of what I had to Congressman Ruperberger's office. Congressman Ruperberger sent me a letter back urging me, and including the address for the Mayor of District of Columbia and for the Anne Arundel County Executive's office, to forward that information to him. Some of it, a lot of it, had already been submitted to the police department. But I did it. The county's response was, we investigated these matters adequately. Now, this is well after they stated in the private investigator's report that Susan was responsible for it, and then sat there a year later and told the press, Channel 7 News, that my concerns were unfounded after I got the White House threat that I reported to the White House. So this is what I've been dealing with. With the ongoing fires, ongoing swastikas on my door, the threats written on my truck, my window bashed out, her refusing to show up for any court hearings, and the police department blowing everything off. They saw the video that I took from my phone that was posted on Facebook a few years back of her chasing me through Glen Burnie. She said, oh, there's nothing we can do. They saw the reports from the fire department that were done and ordered by Captain Grover, Paramedic Brown, that was submitted up, that actually took the phone call, tell that SOB Neil, I want him dead. Did you hear me? I want him dead. It's been proven through the courts in 2017 at the protective hearing that Susan made those phone threats, all of them. Not to mention for all the damages with the broken windows, at the house. That launched this whole thing off with Michael Cox calling the fire department on me because I returned gunfire, thinking it was some idiot making death threats, vandalizing the home that had already been vandalized, and had done the 3 fires already. I was in fear for my life. Susan wasn't even, as far as I knew at the time, wasn't there. She had left while I was in the shower. Her truck was out of the garage. Her car was out of the garage. It turned out there's every reason to believe she parked her car beside the shed to do the damages. There's no doubt. The police department left the crime scene. Susan went down, picked up the rocks, picked up the broken glass, and I had stopped her and said, look, I need to take pictures for the insurance company. Neither one of us knew the police were there, still there. There was about between 40 and 60 police cars initially, and they had all backed out by 10:30 in the morning. So what happens? Police come down after she goes in the house and start harassing me. So, this is what I've dealt with. I've been run through the ringer. I'm divorced when this woman and the doctors, the mental health professionals had said, had she not been denied the mental health care by the police department, and I had not been denied the FMLA, more than likely we still would have been together, because I would have gotten her in the hospital, got her intravenously put back on her meds through having her committed, and then took care of her when she got out of the hospital. This didn't happen. The police, there's something in the EMS book called patient abandonment. It's taught in every EMS book in this country. If you've ever had first aid or EMT, it's in the legal chapter for EMS. And it's called patient abandonment when you refuse someone medical care. And that also includes mental health care. This is a problem the police have been dealing with for years. And there's been some bad incidents where the police aren't trained at how to deal with mental health issues. However, Anne Arundel County Crisis Team is available because they're subcontracted through the police department. And they refuse to call them out. There's no other simple way of saying it. They were presented with the documents. I even showed them I'm a certified EMT and told the officer I make about 4,000 mental health assessments a year riding the ambulance and the fire engine on runs where we're required to assess someone to whether they're alert times 3. And now they refer to it as alert times 4 through using a Glasgow coma scale with the normal rating for a normal person being at 15. Anything that drops below 13 or below, the person's not capable of making their own medical decisions. That's standard practice. That's what's taught. It's the law. It's just like if I pick up an alcoholic or someone that's been drinking, they can't make their own medical decisions. So I have to declare them not capable of making their own medical decisions based on this Glasgow coma scale. And I have to assume in making medical decisions for them if I'm the lead EMT. We can't just leave them on the streets and go away. And that's exactly what the police department did with my wife at the time. To let her to go off on a tangent in mental health crisis, as they stated that she was in mental health crisis 23 days earlier. Not to mention it was documented by her doctor and it was proven she was not compliant with her meds. This is what stirred this all up. This is why I won't back down, because the police department knew she was mentally ill, denied her mental health care, and then aided and abetted her to let her run loose to set fires and to endanger people. This is ridiculous. She was around kids at Glen Burnie High as a school teacher. And that was a dangerous matter. Granted, they took her out of the classroom and let her go into the media center during the day to grade papers because she had a 6-month backlog. I know because I was staying up till midnight some nights helping her grade papers. And all she was saying how much she hated the school and how much she hated her students and this and that was going on. When she snapped on me the day that I called the crisis team that told me to call the police, she was accusing me of sleeping with her psychologist, Dr. Abby Rose, from the InnerSource group in Annapolis, who I did contact. She was out of town, so I utilized the number she had given me for the crisis team. So, this is what I've been dealing with. They've let a mad woman run wild to threaten to kill fire and EMS employees, threaten harm, and it had to be considered a threat not only to me, but to the other firefighters at the White House, as well as the Secret Service, and to President Obama, who was the president at the time. How it got turned around from I'm reporting a death threat that came in while we were on the south lawn of the White House, 50 feet away from the Oval Office, to, this guy's threatening to air personal grievances. It's quite clear in the Secret Service report. Special Agent Jackson from the Secret Service, first he did his mental health assessment on me when he met with me at the McDonald's in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, regarding me calling the White House. But in that report, it clearly states that he did not find me to be under any mental health distress, and that I asked in the form of a question, and he put in parentheses, what am I supposed to do if I get another threat? Am I supposed to put it on the PA? That is a question, not vowing to air all my personal grievances. But this is what has happened. And, and then my department suspends me for a perceived threat to the White House. I legitimately reported a threat. Fire technician John Lane was on that phone unit with me when I answered my phone on speakerphone. We were set up, we had radios to contact the fire engine that sits outside the south lawn of White House. Only 6 people are allowed on the south lawn of White House from the fire department at one time. So I was riding shotgun on a phone unit, there were four other firefighters on the twin agent unit on the other side of the driveway where the president's helicopter comes in and lands. So, there's only 6 that are allowed inside the White House grounds during a helicopter landing from the fire department. All other units have to wait outside the gate. So, this was considered not only a threat to me, but a threat to the White House. And because of our unwritten rule to cut down radio traffic while we're at the White House, our officers want us to use their cell phones to communicate between units, which I didn't have a problem with that, and nobody else did. So this is what we were doing at the White House when we were on helicopter landings, using our cell phones to communicate with one another. And that's when this threat came, and that's why I never looked at the caller ID. I just hit the speaker button on the phone. And that's what had happened. Chief Milton Douglas deemed it a personal matter. I had to make a decision. Do I report a legitimate death threat to Secret Service, which I was on my day off when I called them, and is it a threat to me or is it a threat to the president? Well, until otherwise determined, it was a threat to the president. Now, Susan's attorney during the protective hearing brought up that I was filing a federal lawsuit at the protective hearing in Anne Arundel County and was trying to implicate me for being nuts. That's when my attorney submitted over her paperwork for her mental health condition regarding Susan. And I explained to the judge what the situation was. Until otherwise determined, it's not only a threat to me, but it's a threat to every firefighter, the Secret Service, and the president, as well as any other dignitary that's on the White House grounds. I was doing my duty as an American by reporting it. But I got slammed for it by DC Fire Department. And they did not send me to Form 3B that they're required to do to notify me of a proposed suspension. So I had no way of disputing it. I get it. And, you're suspended. You didn't respond to it. Well, they sent it to the same address that they claim I trespassed on. And they did the same thing with the other charges. Susan was not giving me the documents. Some of the documents were sent back to DC Fire and EMS. I had documented, I'd done Form 9 change of addresses on physical paper, and I had changed my address, my mailing address, and telestaff. But they didn't care. They suspended me anyway. And even Battalion Fire Chief Conway, who's now retired, pulled me in the office down at property where I was working at on a detail and told me the upper echelon is above the law. They think they're above the law. I'm just letting you know, Neil. You know how things are done on this fire department. They feel they're above the law. And that's exactly what they were, above the law. So they wrote this thing out in the federal courts. Now I'm requesting criminal charges, which has a 7-year penalty unless there's been fire or attempted murder, which is listed in 18 USC Section 242. Because of the threats by her and because of the arson attempts, the statute of limitations thrown out the window. The second avenue to point out is because this case has been tied up in court for so long. And there's still evidentiary hearing coming about. But like I said, I'm still getting the runaround from Anne Arundel County. Per Jim Kitchen in the county executive's office, he will not have a meeting with me so I can produce this evidence and show him the actual police reports that were falsified compared to what the police officer told the clinic, the fire department clinic, to Dr. Filson and Chief Michael Dolan. They don't want to look at the reports, or they don't want to take acknowledgement of the reports that their police officers put in there that there was no protective order, and they don't want to see the reports to show that Susan didn't file for divorce until well after I was charged with trespassing on my own marital property. They don't want to see the transcripts from a court case when Susan admitted on the witness stand in court that she agreed to put my name on the deed once I sold my home, which I did, my premarital home. And then she told the judge in the courtroom while on the witness stand that she changed her mind after I sold my home, which is constructive fraud and breach of contract. Didn't matter if there was anything written or not. What mattered was she made it clear under oath in the courtroom after swearing to tell the truth. Now, there's some other issues at the divorce hearing where she falsified dates. The judge didn't want to take a look at the police reports to verify that she was committing perjury on the witness stand. Also, her sister, Ann Mead, also deliberately falsified statements while under oath on the witness stand at the divorce hearing that should have never occurred because that judge knew it was illegal to proceed with that divorce trial with dividing any property. There wasn't any property divided, he gave it all to her. So this is what's happened now with the federal court ruling. It's already been, Judge Rice at the federal hearing stated Anne Arundel County Circuit Court should not have been doing the bankruptcy court's job. He basically was saying, yes, the state of Maryland and Arundel County Circuit Court is in contempt of court. And it's even documented on the court records from Anne Arundel County that bankruptcy had been filed prior to the divorce hearing. So this is another thing that the state of Maryland knew they were violating federal bankruptcy law by proceeding with that case. Not to mention, the attorney that I had at the time told the judge, I'm not prepared for a divorce defense because bankruptcy had been filed. The judge proceeded anyway. So this is what's been going on. It's a little mixed up in the order I put it in, but this is what's been going on. There's just so much to this, and there's a lot more I can't discuss in this video. I'm already into about 45 minutes in this video. So this is where I'm going to end it at. County Executive Stuart Pittman refuses to have a meeting with me regarding the criminal misconduct by committing perjury on police reports and committing perjury to other agencies with false information on me. He refuses to hold these police officers responsible, either criminally or administratively. 2, the lieutenant at Internal Affairs is one of the ones, Michael Cox is the lieutenant at Internal Affairs, is one of the ones that started all of this, but yet Internal Affairs will not investigate his criminal misconduct. So this is what the taxpayers are paying for in Anne Arundel County. This is the abuse I had to put up with. My character has been beaten down and run through the bush, not only as a human being, but as a firefighter EMT, as an ordained minister, and an honorary doctorate of divinity. People could say, oh, well, we can't believe this. Well, it happened, and there's 4,000 documents to prove it that are going to be, majority of those are going to be submitted at the evidentiary hearing in the federal court. So that's where it's at. Y'all have a blessed evening. I hope everybody's safe out there. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. But please do not trust the Anne Arundel County Police Department. They've proven to me that they're corrupt, and the county executive has proven to me that he's corrupt, as well as the previous county executive. Y'all have a blessed evening.